The sun hung low over the savannah, casting long shadows across the cracked earth. The horizon blazed in hues of orange and deep purple, as if the sky itself had been set on fire. A warm breeze stirred the dry grass, carrying the scent of dust and distant water. It should have been peaceful, a quiet end to another day in the African wilderness. But peace rarely lasted long out here. Leo crouched on a small rise, his golden eyes scanning the open plain. He was young, muscles lean but powerful, his mane still filling in. Hunger gnawed at him like an old enemy. He hadn't eaten in days. Every hunt had ended in failure, gazelles too quick, zebras too watchful. He had begun to feel the weight of the savannah pressing in. Indifferent and unyielding, he lifted his head suddenly, ears twitching. The ground trembled faintly beneath his paws. A low rumble rolled across the field like distant thunder. Then he saw them, elephants. A whole herd, emerging from behind the scrub trees. Dust rose around their feet as they moved, a cloud marking their path across the plains. At the front, a massive matriarch led the way. Her skin bore the deep creases of age and wisdom. Her tusks curved like ivory scythes. Behind her shuffled the rest of the group, large and small, flanking a calf that looked barely a week old. The mother kept close, trunk touching its back now and then. Something about the way the adults moved, tight formation, ears flared, eyes sharp, told Leo they were on edge. These elephants weren't just traveling. They were defending. Leo didn't move. He was no threat. Not today. Not with a growling stomach and no strength to fight. But the elephants didn't know that. The matriarch paused, raising her head. Her eyes found him immediately. A low trumpet escaped her trunk. Not loud, but enough. The herd bunched together. The calf vanished behind a wall of legs. Dust rose as the elephants shifted, uncertain whether to flee or charge. Miles away, from the seat of a battered jeep, Kara watched it unfold through her binoculars. She had seen the herd earlier that day, tracking their movement for weeks as part of her conservation work. But this reaction, was new. Fear, aggression, protection. Something had scared them, recently and badly. She adjusted the lens. Then she saw him, the lion, young, alone, not hunting, just watching. Kara exhaled. She could almost feel his tension, the hunger, the exhaustion in his body. She had seen lions like this before, cast out, struggling to find a place in a harsh hierarchy. They were the ones most at risk. They were the ones who sometimes broke the rules. Out of desperation, Kara started the engine and slowly rolled forward, careful not to spook the herd. She kept her distance, stopping a few hundred meters away. She grabbed her notebook, scribbling quick observations. Leo didn't seem to notice her arrival, or didn't care. He just kept watching the elephants. And they kept watching him. Then, without warning, the wind shifted. A gust carried Kara's scent, or maybe the sound of the engine, toward the herd. The matriarch let out a sharp blast. Two adult females stomped forward, trumpeting, dust flying. Leo flinched but held his ground. He wasn't going to run. Not anymore. Kara stood up in the jeep and raised both hands slowly. Fingers spread wide. A signal she'd used before. Easy, she murmured, though the elephants couldn't hear her words. Only her presence, her calm. She wasn't sure it mattered. The matriarch stepped forward, trunk high, eyes locked on the lion. Leo tensed. He wasn't stupid. One wrong move and those tusks could kill him. But something strange held him still, curiosity. Maybe. Or pride. Or the vague sense that he and the massive animal were not so different. The moment stretched. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then, slowly, the matriarch lowered her trunk. She gave a soft huff and turned, moving back toward the calf. The others followed, still wary, still ready, but for now, they would not fight. Leo exhaled and sat down, tail flicking behind him. The hunger still gnawed, but he felt something shift. Not safety, exactly, just space to breathe. Kara watched with quiet awe. She had seen lions run from elephants, and elephants charge without pause. But she had never seen this moment of silent understanding between two worlds often in conflict. She made a note in her journal but knew no words would quite capture it. As the herd moved off, the light fading behind them, Leo rose to his feet. He turned and began walking in the opposite direction. Not defeated, but not victorious either, just continuing. Kara started the engine again. She would follow the elephants, make sure they were safe through the night. But she glanced back once at the lion, a figure already melting into the growing darkness. In the savannah, survival was never promised, but sometimes, the wild offered moments of grace. This had been one of them. The ground still shook with the after rhythm of the elephant's charge. Dust clung to the dry air, hanging like a curtain over the savannah. From her camp a few hundred meters away, Kara had heard the commotion, sharp trumpets, a lion's roar, the heavy thud of massive feet slamming against the earth. It wasn't just noise. It was the sound of something going wrong. She didn't hesitate. Boots laced, radio clipped to her belt. Kara grabbed her satchel and sprinted through the tall grass, heart pounding faster with each step. She had spent years working in the wild, studying behavior, guiding rescues, helping animals heal and avoid unnecessary conflict. And she knew the sound of a defensive elephant herd when she heard it. As she crested a low ridge, the scene unfolded below her, devastating and silent now. The herd of elephants stood in a loose formation, clustered tightly around a tiny calf. Their enormous ears were still flared, tails stiff. Some stamped the ground, still agitated. Others swayed slightly, watching. At the center of the open space lay a lion. Kara's eyes narrowed. It was him, the young male she had seen days earlier. Alone, thin, exhausted. His body was twisted awkwardly. And even from this distance, Kara could see the blood streaked along his side. His chest rose and fell with difficulty. He wasn't dead, but he was close. Kara knew she was stepping into dangerous territory. One wrong move near a defensive elephant herd could be fatal. But she also knew the herd wasn't acting out of rage. This wasn't an unprovoked attack. It was protection, instinctive and absolute. She slowed her pace as she approached, keeping her hands visible, her posture low and unthreatening. Her voice came soft, steady, barely more than a whisper, but full of intent. "Easy, girl," she said to the matriarch. "I'm not here to harm you. I see your baby. I know you're just keeping her safe." The matriarch's head turned, her deep eyes locking onto Kara. Her trunk curled up, then lowered again. Kara kept walking, slow, deliberate steps, never turning her back. Over years of work, Kara had learned how to move through tension like this, not by overpowering it, but by acknowledging it. She didn't demand trust. She asked for it with her calm. She stopped about 20 meters away. Just close enough to speak with her body language. I need to help him, she said, voice still gentle. He's not a danger anymore. Look at him. The matriarch did not charge. She didn't turn away either. The rest of the herd stayed in place, still forming a barrier around the calf. Kara opened her satchel and slowly pulled out a long stick with a scrap of fabric tied to the end, something she used when guiding elephants before. A kind of soft visual cue. She held it low, letting it sway gently with the wind. No sudden movements, just presence. I won't get any closer to you, Kara said, but I need to reach him. Let me help. Minutes passed. The tension hung heavy, but eventually, the matriarch took a slow step back. Not far, just enough. A signal. The others followed, slightly loosening the circle. It wasn't a green light, but it was space. Enough for Kara to move. She approached Leo cautiously, up close. The damage was worse than it had looked from afar. Blood matted the fur on his side, and his left leg was bent at an unnatural angle. His breathing was shallow, and one eye cracked open as she neared, alert but dulled with pain. It's okay, Kara whispered. She crouched beside him, not touching yet. You're lucky to be alive. You stubborn thing. He growled low, more out of instinct than hostility. But didn't move. He couldn't. Kara scanned the injuries quickly, assessing what she could do out here in the field. She reached into her satchel again and pulled out a water pouch. Uncapping it slowly, she poured a trickle near his mouth. He didn't drink at first, then, gradually, his tongue moved, lapping weakly. Behind her, the elephants still watched. The matriarch stood like a sentinel, her eyes never leaving Kara. But there was no more aggression, only guarded curiosity. Kara knew she had to work fast. The longer she stayed, the more unpredictable things could become. I'm going to get you out of here, she said to Leo. Don't give up on me now. She pulled out her radio. Moses. It's Kara. I need backup. Injured lion. Northwest of camp. Possible broken leg. Bring the tranquilizer kit. And be quiet when you come. There's a herd of elephants watching. And they're not happy. Static crackled. Then a voice responded. Copy that. On our way. As she waited, Kara kept her focus split, half on Leo's shallow breaths, half on the herd nearby. She spoke to them softly now and then, words not meant to be understood, but to carry calm. You did the right thing, she said aloud. You protected your baby, and now I'm trying to protect him. The matriarch blinked once. Then she turned away, leading the herd slowly back toward the distant trees. It was a withdrawal, not a retreat, a conscious decision to end the conflict. Relief hit Kara like a wave. When the backup crew arrived, they found her still kneeling beside the injured lion, one hand lightly resting near his paw. She didn't smile, not yet. The work was far from done. But the worst part, the violence, the misunderstanding, the razor-thin edge of life and death, that part was over. For now. And in that fragile calm, under the watching sun and the wide, wounded sky, something rare had happened. Understanding. The wind shifted just as Leo crept through the tall, dry grass. The sun was climbing now, burning off the coolness of early morning. Heat waves shimmered across the plains, and the scent of water, faint, distant, teased his senses. Hunger had sharpened everything, his focus, his hearing, his desperation. Leo moved slowly, muscles taut beneath his coat. He had been on his own for weeks, pushed out of his pride by older males. Now, every meal was a fight, and every day a gamble. He had followed a faint trail, elephant droppings, broken branches, a crushed patch of grass. He wasn't hunting elephants. He wasn't suicidal, but where there were elephants, there might be water, and maybe prey. That was all he needed. He rounded a thick patch of thornbush and froze. The herd was right there. They hadn't heard him approach, yet. A dozen elephants, grazing, dust bathing, huddled protectively around the young calf. At the center, the matriarch lifted her head, ears twitching. Her trunk hovered in the air, tasting it. Her eyes locked onto the figure half hidden in the grass. Leo didn't move, but it was too late. A blast rang out from the matriarch's trunk, short, sharp, full of alarm. The ground seemed to tremble. The herd surged into motion. The calf was immediately pulled behind a wall of massive bodies. The matriarch stepped forward, head high, ears flared, her presence radiating authority and fury. To her, Leo was a predator, a threat. A lion near a newborn calf could only mean danger. Leo took a cautious step back, but that only seemed to trigger them. The matriarch charged. Her trumpet shattered the silence, echoed by the cries of the others. Dust exploded into the air as the massive elephant bore down on him. Behind her, the rest of the herd followed, gray giants thundering forward, legs pounding like war drums. Leo spun and ran. He didn't think, didn't plan, he just moved. The dry earth kicked up behind him as he sprinted for cover. But he wasn't fast enough. Not this time. The matriarch caught up. Her tusk missed his flank by inches, but her sheer momentum knocked the air from his lungs. Leo tumbled, rolled across the dirt, then scrambled to his feet again. Panting, eyes wild, they surrounded him. A wall of legs and trunks and fury closed in. The matriarch stood at the front, her massive form blocking any path of escape. Behind her, another female trumpeted and stomped, shaking the ground. Leo roared, not out of defiance, but fear. He bared his teeth, claws unsheathed, but it was useless. These weren't prey. These weren't rivals he could fight. He lunged toward a gap in their formation, aiming for a break between two younger elephants. One of them lashed out with her trunk, catching him in the ribs. The impact was like being struck by a tree. Leo flew sideways, landing hard, dust choking his throat as he hit the ground. He tried to rise, but his left foreleg gave out beneath him. Pain seared through his shoulder. Blood trickled from a gash near his ribs. He growled weakly, unable to stand. The matriarch approached slowly now, not charging, assessing. Her trunk hovered inches from Leo's face. Her breath was hot, loud, steady. She could kill him. One step, one thrust of a tusk, and it would be over. Leo lowered his head. He was beaten. The elephants stood still, waiting for the signal, but it didn't come. The matriarch stayed silent. She watched Leo for a long moment. Then she raised her trunk, sniffed the air again, and slowly turned away. The threat, it seemed, was no longer worth the energy. With low rumbles and snorts, the herd backed off. The calf was shuffled away, kept deep within the protective cluster. One by one, the elephants moved on, the dust of their passage rising in great clouds. The matriarch was the last to leave. She looked back once, briefly, then disappeared behind the tall grass and the shimmering heat. Leo didn't move for a while. His body ached, and his pride felt just as bruised. He wasn't dead, but he had come close. Too close. The savannah was silent again, save for the faint buzz of insects and the whisper of dry wind. Eventually, he dragged himself beneath a lone acacia, where the shadow stretched long and cool. He lay there, ribs heaving, eyes half closed. His breathing was shallow, uneven. He had fought for nothing, and nearly died for it. And yet, even in pain, Leo knew he had to survive. There was no other choice. Out here, in the wild, survival was not about strength alone. It was about learning when to fight, and when to live another day. And Leo, though wounded, was still alive. The sun was now high in the sky, casting harsh light over the savannah. The heat made the dust shimmer. But Kara didn't blink. She stood tall, unmoving, between the injured lion and the protective wall of elephants. The matriarch faced her directly, ears still wide, trunk raised slightly in warning. Around her, the other elephants remained tightly grouped, their eyes following Kara's every movement. The calf was hidden deep within the cluster, safe but nervous, occasionally trumpeting a high, uncertain sound. Kara knew she had only moments to act. The balance between safety and chaos was razor thin. She took a slow step forward, placing herself fully between Leo and the matriarch. She raised both arms, not aggressively, but deliberately, making herself appear larger, more dominant in posture. At the same time, her voice dropped into a calm, steady register. It's all right. I see you. I know what you're doing. You're protecting your baby. That's what mothers do. Her tone was low, warm, like the hum of the earth after rain. She didn't rush, didn't wave her hands or show fear. She held her ground, not challenging, but clear in her presence. You've done your job, she continued. He's no threat now. He's just trying to survive. The matriarch didn't charge. Instead, her massive frame shifted slightly to one side, her trunk lowering, then lifting again. She took a cautious step back. It was subtle, but Kara knew the signs. The matriarch wasn't retreating out of submission. She was choosing peace, still watchful, still protective, but allowing space. Kara mirrored the energy. She took another slow step forward, arms still raised, then turned slightly, angling her body to show she wasn't advancing on the herd. She was guiding him, redirecting their attention, giving them something else to focus on. Come on, she whispered under her breath. You're done here, let's go. She made a low, rhythmic sound from her throat, a trick she'd learned from another conservationist who had studied elephant communication. It was a soft vibration, mimicking the low rumbles elephants used among themselves. Kara didn't pretend it was perfect, but sometimes it helped bridge the gap. Another female in the herd gave a low grunt and moved a few steps back. Then another followed. The formation began to loosen. The matriarch held still for a moment longer, then turned, just slightly, and began to walk. The others followed. Slowly, the herd moved away, back toward the direction of the trees. Their calf was still safely tucked among them. And though the tension hadn't entirely faded, the immediate threat was over. Kara waited until the last of them had disappeared behind the tall grass before she turned around. Leo hadn't moved far. He was still on the ground, legs trembling, ribs rising and falling quickly. But now, with the elephants gone, something had returned to his eyes, a flicker of instinct, of stubborn will. He tried to stand. His foreleg buckled, and he collapsed again. But he didn't give up. Kara crouched nearby and called to him gently. "Come on, boy, I've got you." He looked at her, exhausted and uncertain. Then he began to crawl, dragging his injured leg behind him, each movement slow and painful. He growled once, not at her, but at the pain, and kept going. Kara moved a few steps ahead, guiding him toward a thick clump of bushes nearby, one she had scouted earlier as a potential safe spot. It would offer shade, shelter from any nearby scavengers, and cover until help arrived. "You're almost there," she said, "just a bit more." Leo limped, staggered, and finally reached the edge of the brush. Kara parted the branches and made room for him to squeeze through. He collapsed inside, panting heavily. His body trembled with fatigue and pain. But he was alive, and for the first time that day. Safe. Kara knelt beside him, careful not to crowd his space. She didn't touch him yet. Trust had to be earned, not assumed, but she was close enough that he could sense her presence. "You did good," she said softly. "You held on." She reached into her bag, pulled out a second water pouch, and let a few drops fall near his mouth again. He drank slowly, eyes half closed. Kara radioed her team once more. "The herd is moving east. Lion is down but alive. I've got him in cover. Bring the stretcher kit. We'll need it." "Copy that." 10 minutes out, came the reply. She exhaled, shoulders sagging for the first time in what felt like hours. The savannah was quiet again, the adrenaline slowly draining from her body. The elephants were gone. Leo was safe, and for now, the fragile balance between predator and protector had held. Kara looked out at the horizon, where the dust of the herd still drifted in the distance. Then back at the broken lion beside her. Nature didn't choose sides. It only demanded that its creatures fight to endure. And today, one had nearly fallen, but hadn't. Because someone had stepped in. And that had made all the difference. The shade beneath the bush offered little relief from the heat. But it was enough. Leo lay still, every breath shallow but steady. His body curled slightly around the injury on his side. Kara knelt beside him, her satchel open, medical supplies spread out on a clean cloth. Flies buzzed around them, drawn to the blood, but she barely noticed. Her focus was on the lion. She began with the basics. Gloves on, antiseptic applied. The wound on his ribs was deep but clean, more a gouge from a tusk than a tear. The leg was worse, possibly fractured, but not beyond hope. Kara cleaned the gash, wincing as Leo twitched and let out a low, rumbling growl. "I know," she said quietly. "I'm not trying to hurt you. Just hold on." Her voice was calm, grounding. She moved slowly, deliberately, talking to him as she worked, not because he understood the words, but because the rhythm, the steadiness, could ease the panic that still lurked beneath his pain. She injected a mild sedative just beneath the skin, enough to dull his senses without knocking him out completely. Then she wrapped his side with gauze and secured his leg with a temporary brace. Each step was a negotiation, between speed and precision, between instinct and logic. When she finished, she sat back on her heels and let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "You're stable now," she murmured. "You're going to be all right." Leo blinked slowly, his head lifting slightly to look at her. There was no fear in his eyes anymore, just exhaustion. And something else. Awareness. Recognition. He could have attacked, even injured. He had the strength to lash out. But he didn't. Instead, he let her stay close. Let her care for him. Let her help. Over the next few hours, the rest of her team arrived. They worked quietly, respecting the strange calm between the woman and the lion. A stretcher was prepared, but Kara insisted on staying by Leo's side as they lifted him carefully and placed him onto the transport mat. He growled once, more in protest than pain, but didn't fight. At the field clinic, set up just beyond the main reserve camp, Leo was given fluids, more painkillers, and a quiet place to rest. Kara stayed with him long into the night, sitting near the enclosure, watching the rise and fall of his chest. He was still too weak to stand, but he was healing. In the days that followed, Kara returned every morning. She changed his bandages, monitored his breathing, and adjusted the brace on his leg. But more than that, she was present. She spoke to him, sat beside him in the shade, read her notes out loud, sometimes just sat in silence. And Leo watched her, at first from a distance. Then, gradually, without fear, when she entered the enclosure, he no longer tensed. When she touched his side to change a dressing, he leaned slightly into her hand. When she left, he followed her with his eyes. And when she returned, there was a subtle flick of his tail, a gesture she chose to believe meant he was glad to see her. There was something between them now, a thread neither of them could name. But both understood. Kara had helped many animals in her career, wounded rhinos, orphaned giraffes, a zebra caught in a poacher's trap. But something about Leo was different. It wasn't just the timing or the danger or the dramatic rescue. It was the way he looked at her, as if he understood that she had made a choice to stand with him. Not out of obligation, but out of something deeper. On the sixth day, Leo stood. It was unsteady, painful, and brief, but it was real. Kara was outside the enclosure when it happened. She turned just in time to see him on all fours, his body trembling, head lowered in concentration. She didn't say anything, didn't rush in. She just watched. Leo took 2 slow steps forward, then collapsed again, but he didn't look defeated. Kara smiled. "You're getting there." That night, she sat by the enclosure long after the others had gone. The stars blinked into existence above the dark horizon. Crickets hummed. Somewhere far off, hyenas called. Kara leaned back in her chair, eyes on the lion resting just meters away. This, she thought, was why she did it. Not for glory, not for numbers on a report, but for this, the fragile thread of life. The moments when the wild reached back toward the human hand that dared to care. Leo wouldn't stay forever. He wasn't meant to. Once strong enough, he would return to the savannah. And he might never come near a human again. But she would remember. And she believed he would. Too. That memory, of mercy, of understanding, would travel with him. Quiet but real. For Kara, it was enough. In saving Leo, she had reaffirmed everything she believed, that one act of compassion could shift the balance of survival. That even in a world ruled by instinct and tooth and claw, kindness still mattered, and that sometimes, the wild gave back more than it took.
Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please comment 1. And if you didn't, just hit like. See you in the next videos.